Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone's having a great start to your day. We are on hump day, and markets are actually taking a nice, or were taking a nice move to the upside. Economic data this morning seems to be now dragging us down a little bit, quite honestly. You can see here this morning, as at 8 o'clock, we were still up around $500, $499. On the Qs, now we're dropping down, so we are seeing a pullback here across the markets early here. Newest economic data that came out this morning was the jobs report, and we did see that February's job growth was pretty dismal here. So let's see what we got. In February 2025, U.S. private sector added 77,000 jobs, making it the smallest increase since July of last year. Hiring slowdown is one of the key highlights they pointed to. A significant decrease from the 186,000 jobs added in January, indicating a potential cooling. I mean, I don't think at this point you could say a potential cooling. I think you have to say the job market has cooled way off in general. And that just, continues to be part of the data points that are just keeping us down. We had been moving up on news, quite honestly, not from the president, but some fairly solid news from Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, who spoke that they would have news on the tariffs later this afternoon, and they were moving in the right way, and things seem to be, looking to sort of move back in a stronger direction there. But that seems to have taken a backseat. In fact, I see CNBC, that's what they're leading with here, is Lutnick and his news, but it doesn't seem to be moving it. If we look a little bit at the sector performance, goods producing sectors added 42,000 jobs. Construction added about 26,000. Manufacturing saw 18,000. Service providing sector saw a modest increase of 36K. And there was a decline in small business employment, reflecting challenges faced by the smaller enterprises, smaller companies. We see this across the RUT, which was one of the big losers yesterday, down about 1.08%. Jobs stayers, people who stayed in their jobs, are experiencing a consistent annual pay increase of about 4.7%. I will mention that that's, being pushed up by some of the increases in minimum wages that also hit on the first of the year. So that's there. So, there's still concerns about stagflation. We hear that word come off, again and again now. For those that don't know, stagflation is a combination of a stagnant or flat economic growth, GDP, things like that, and rising inflation, which we are expecting or already seeing from our new tariffs. So it does cause challenges for both businesses and policymakers. We'll see how the Federal Reserve reacts to this. It's sort of a tough balancing act right now. So that's what's got the markets moving sort of the most here. And as we can see, QQQ about to go negative here. So the key support line I had already put here on the short-term chart, it broke below. We had seen a double bottom at that 495.99 area. We've now broken below that. So our first level of support here this morning on the Qs, we've already dropped below that. So I'll bring that up, tell you what I was looking at here. As I mentioned, you can see we sort of double bottom this morning right around that 496 area. Fell right through it pretty decisively and continuing to move to the downside. Tick now negative 245. Advanced decline was positive almost 3,000 here just an hour ago. Now only 1842. So moving to the downside. And this headline I put together sort of doesn't really make sense anymore. I did write that stocks rebounded pre-market, as like I said, there was some potential tariff compromises looming. But that seems to have moved away. Now let's take a look and see what it's done to some of the indices here. Yeah, 10-year now down 1.1%. So we were holding steady at 4.2%. So this economic data, again, that's why it's so important to be keeping your head on a swivel here today. And again, as I mentioned, if you just go back to 8 o'clock this morning, the 10-year was running at about 4.26. That job data comes out, job data kind of pointing to the Fed needs to cut, right? And what do we see? We see an immediate move to the downside here, 4.2 and below. So let's see what the DXY is doing, and it's continuing to drop also. We do have Stephen Flanagan coming on at 10 o'clock, but wow, King Dollar definitely taking a back seat here over the last 3 days, with a drop from the mid 107s here to 104.715. So we've blown past sort of the first areas that Steve talked with us about last week. I'm not the expert, but I would be watching here where we capped up and where we hit resistance a few times. The next level here I'm looking at is this 104.61 area. Can we hold that today? But, we're seeing that. I will mention Germany has sort of, I don't want to use the word fought back, but Germany is sort of making some decisive moves overnight that has European markets moving up, along with the dollar dropping. So I do have a bunch of news here on this German debt overhaul. Again, we'll talk more at this at 10 o'clock with Mr. Flanagan. But just to give you a little bit of news here is Germany did come out. They are going to do some fiscal policy reforms. They're going to amend the constitution to exempt defense expenditures above 1% of GDP. So they had existing debt constraints. They are going to try to, move the markets by doing it. It's about a 500 billion euro move into the infrastructure there. And in sector highlights of, first of all, Germany's blue chip DAX surged 3.4%, nearing a record high. The mid-cap MDAX soared 10.3%, marking its largest daily gains in 3 years. And the Stoxx 600 was up about 1.5, now only up about 1.08. But again, not all the way to its all-time highs that it hit either late last week or early Monday. But moving in that direction without a doubt here. So, President Trump, I saw a couple of tweets already today that said it. He has definitely made Europe's economy much stronger over the last week here. So we'll see how this plays out. Did see some news, keep in mind that this Europe's defense boom will be a little bit of a win for some U.S. contractors. They pointed out Lockheed Martin, LMT, and RTX were poised to gain with the F-35 and missile defense orders coming. And Citi did mention that defense stocks were undervalued, time to buy. So, we are seeing it move there. As I said, Germany created an infrastructure fund. The German political parties agreed to establish a 500 billion infrastructure fund aimed at revitalizing the military and boosting economic growth. Again, I don't think that this is a bad thing. I don't want people to think this is a negative. Europe needs to take care of its own backyard. We can't always be the policeman on the watch, so to speak, and front the bills. I do agree with that. So, Germany stepping up. Hopefully the rest of the Eurozone can start to follow suit and we can see something move there. Some of the sectors that were moving up pretty high, construction and material sector in Germany was up about 4.5%. And like I said, defense stocks were up about 3.7% there. We also saw the bonds take off. The 10-year bond, which is the 10-year Bund yield, rose 19 basis points to 2.6. And the 30-year Bund increased by 15 basis points, making it the largest daily climb since October of 98. Economists and investors praised Germany's fiscal policy shift, viewing it as a significant move to stimulate growth and enhance defensive capabilities. The change is expected to positively impact both German and broader European economies. So, we've been looking for something to start moving Europe up, and, we're seeing it, although I will say everything is sort of tanking here right now again. So now we see QQQ has regained, gone back into the green, but the SPY is down now down about 12 basis points here. Bitcoin was up above 90, now back down at 89,568 here. Sort of the news, on there was that, again, Howard Lutnick came out and did say that the strategic reserve will treat Bitcoin uniquely. It will have a unique status in there. All the other altcoins will be treated differently. So after some pushback over the last few days by a lot of people, myself included there, in regards to the crypto strategic reserve, seems like we're getting a little bit more clarity. Again, we know March 7th, Friday, that the crypto summit will be in DC, Trump's crypto summit. He will be speaking at it, but he's got folks from Michael Saylor and Brian Armstrong, Kraken CEO, the founder of Chainlink, and others will be there. So we'll see what comes out of that. I have heard through the grapevine to keep an eye that there will be an announcement about capital gains taxes and crypto. So, talk again. But this, again, would just be a rehash of old news, right? Trump has said that he would remove income tax off of crypto capital gains. So we'll see if that comes through, but there'll be an announcement. My question will be, is it just an announcement about another announcement, or is there, actual movement on it, would be the key that I do. Again, everything's still really based on the tariffs. We've talked about them a lot yesterday, but it is what's leading, markets up or down, and unfortunately mostly down over the last few days here in regards to that. I will say I did go through the Mag 7, and we're going to look at it today, and took a look at some levels here, the key levels that I'm looking at on the daily chart here, key support levels and key areas that I would be watching if I was long or short in these positions. So, we will take a look through some of these. I did do all of them last night. I don't think there's been enough movement for any of them to sort of be invalidated. But, for instance, on NVIDIA, my first level of obvious support to watch here is 109.64, where it bottomed out on yesterday's trading. And I do think we've got a little bit of a liquidity zone between that red line you see and the white line you can see back here. And the area have now turned red. We had a pretty good zone of liquidity here, price action discovery in between that 101 and 109 area. So for me personally, I see anything here. If I'm in a short, I would be looking here to maybe, on any approach of that 109.64 to lessen that off. If I'm looking to go long, I want to see if we can dip into that zone here in between 101.34 and 109.64. Sweep some liquidity there, and then maybe look into a long. If we continue to see positive movement upward here today, again, I'd be looking to, lessen my bags on a long anywhere towards that. Actually, I would bring that even down a little bit here. I'd be looking right about that level, right about 123, 124 is where I'd start to get a little bit of nervous here. And again, what you'll see is there's a pretty good zone of liquidity that we've found in this range in between 123 and 129.50. You can see the sell-off there was pretty hard in the middle of June of last year. Sell-off again in the middle of August at that time when it run through it. Turned to nice support here in October. That support held on multiple occasions here in October, December, and even January. Now we fell through below that level. We were able to break through it, but we fell through it pretty quickly on both of these. So what I don't like is there wasn't much price discovery really in here. As you can see, we gapped up a couple of days here. So, but that's what I'm looking at on NVIDIA. And after the open, we'll start to go through, excuse me, each of the Mag 7 and take a look at that. I was looking at some other ones. Bank of America, Boeing was another one I was taking a look at last night, trying to see, it's retraced here. Does it start to get interesting to me again? And a note here, I would say, yes, it does, but I'm looking again. I like this, zone of liquidity here that you seem to have in between 151 and 157. So any kind of rip into that maybe here today could be a spot to look for that. I am still not very bullish on the market right now. I'll play the hand in front of me here today. We'll see what comes from everything. But I don't know, employment numbers were pretty weak. I think we're going to see that focused on. We'll see what happens, later this afternoon with the news on tariffs, but that keeps me a little bit uneasy. I'd ask everybody, put it in the comments. How do you guys feel about these tariff news today? Do you think we're going to get some good news that can buoy the market? Or what do you guys think? Are we looking at another day where we fade off into the sunset like we did last night? We made a nice run up during the mid-afternoon, but by the end of the day, again, on, more and more tariff talk, kind of moving to the downside. So right now, pretty flat as we get ready to enter. QQQ has regained a little bit of a momentum here, back up about 30 basis points. Tick, though, slightly negative, advanced decline, inching back up towards that 2,000 mark. Good morning, Ron. Hope you're having a good one there, buddy. We'll say VIX still rather elevated at that 2376 area here. I'd love to say this is an area that I would normally short the VIX because it would be, but, there's just too much uncertainty for me right now to have a move there. If I was looking at anything on the VIX right now, I might look for something that plays a straddle, to kind of look for something to the outsized move one way or the other, because I do think we'll see it. I don't think we travel in this 23 throughout, through Friday. I think we move one way or the other here, either back down to the 15 level, or we spike up. We get a spike towards that 28. So that's how I personally would be playing the VIX right now if I was looking to do it. Again, I mentioned what was happening overnight already when it came to this European stocks. Nikkei pretty flat here. I did have some news on the Bank of Japan, I think. There we go. Now let me pull up my news on this side. So a little bit of a talk, here we're looking for the Fed to cut, and we know most of the folks that are on our educator list have been calling for that. Also, Bank of Japan here, on the other hand, talking about moving to the upside, as we know. So their deputy governor indicated that while the central bank plans to continuing raising interest rates, it will proceed cautiously due to the underlying inflation still being below the 2% target. And again, Japan in a very different, situation than most of the other parts of the world. They are in, have been fighting deflation for a long time, not inflation. The economic outlook, Japan's economy moderately recovering with expectations of solid wage increase supporting consumption. He did point out the high uncertainty in the global economic outlook, particularly concerning U.S. tariff policies and geopolitical tensions, necessitates careful monitoring and monetary policy decisions. And again, the Bank of Japan will continue to raise rates if economic and price projections are realized, aiming for long-term stability in economic activity and prices. And it's sort of like I said, the Nikkei was not moving very much. China, on the other hand, and I do have some notes on them also, China and President Xi has basically said, I'm ready to fight back. They've definitely taken that approach, towards it here. And I did see notes, and again, I will point out, I don't take much economic information that comes from China. I take it with pretty much a grain of salt. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find my notes on it here. Here we go. Yeah. So China did say they retained a 5% GDP growth target for 2025, despite the U.S. tariffs. Beijing plans increasing the fiscal stimulus, raising the budget deficit to 4% of GDP. They did have it at 3% last year, and the offshore yuan weakened slightly, though it had seen a major rally the previous day. So that's sort of the news out of China there. I did have, I'm just looking here, I had some other international news on some individual stocks to talk about here. The big one was Novo Nordisk. There it is. Similar to Lilly, they have announced that they are going to offer Wegovy at a $499 a month for cash paying patients. So very similar to Eli Lilly's Lilly Direct for Zepbound and Olympic. So good for Novo Nordisk. I didn't see it moving their price all that much. NVO, right? No. Oh, that's why I want funds. It does. It has them up almost 5%. I apologize for that. I didn't see the news. I didn't see the jump there. It didn't come up in my scanners here. I will point out things that I'm watching here today that are moving the most. First of all, you have Huntington Ingalls up about 10% here in pre-market earnings. I didn't really see anything in the news, and their earnings were back in February 6th. So this was an interesting one because I don't have a lot of knowledge on why they're moving up, except for that they're in the defense contractor, and maybe that they are going to be a big beneficiary, like we said, with RTX and Lockheed Martin by the investment in the German and other European companies there. Moderna nicely moving to the upside today. mRNA up about 5%. These first ones I'm doing are the leaders in the S&P 500. GM, General Motors, up nicely here, 3.54%. I will point that that's pretty much a 100% retracement of yesterday's loss. So it's good to see that we're getting back almost to where it opened yesterday. So good to see some of these moving back up. APTV, which is Active, an electronic company, up again about 3.47. Smurfit, which we've seen up move up a few times recently, although I will point out down 6.81% yesterday, up 3.1 today. So that's what's one of my key takeaways again is if you are in something, if you get into a position and you get that nice move to the upside or downside, depending on what your position is, don't be afraid to take profit and to take it pretty quickly in this type of environment, because we just can point to so many of these. Like I said, if you were in a short on Smurfit Westlock yesterday, great, you went down 6%. It's already done a half measured move back to the upside in the pre-market here. So things to keep an eye on. One of my favorite companies, you guys know, is Brown-Forman. Brown-Forman, which is the whiskey company, parent company of Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, along with a huge tequila portfolio of Herradura and others. They also are Corbel Champagne and Brandy. But one of my favorite companies because they have such a holding of bourbon. And they've been really, really beaten up here over the last year and a half here. Actually, I'd say even the last year and a half. Brown-Forman's really been beaten up, but they are making a nice move here. They're right about at a resistance spot to keep an eye on. You can see they gap down to this spot right around 35.10. Right now trading at 34.89. So let's see if they can establish a little bit of a move above that, hold above that 35.10 for then it would give me a positive move to the upside. So we'll see what happens there. Some other pre-market movers are starting to reverse their gains. CZR had been up tremendously earlier. Caesar now down a little bit from that move, only up 0.03%. And again, that had been up as high as 31.41 earlier this morning. So we're seeing a little bit of a pullback across these. Again, Ford, all of the car companies getting a little bit of a reprisal today, moving up. CrowdStrike on poor earnings last night, moving to the downside, down 6.78% here. One of the bigger losers. Ron, were you asking for Brown Forman? I'm assuming Brown Forman is BF.B. BF.B, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And again, that is the parent company of Jack Daniels. And I can give you some of the information off of their earnings here. So they had an EPS of 57 cents, a decrease from 60 cents the same quarter last year. And their sales was down slightly, 1.04 billion from 1.07. And their operating income decreased to $280 million. Net sales fell by 4%. However, on an organic basis, their net sales actually grew by 2%. Brand performance, they said that their whiskey portfolio net sales remained flat, but saw 2% organic growth, driven by brands like Woodford Reserve and Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey. The big losses was in their tequila portfolio. They experienced a 15% decline in net sales, affected by competitive pressures in the U.S. and economic challenges in Mexico. And I will point out, they've made, in my personal opinion, a poor move in their tequila portfolio. As I said, their Herradura, El Tesoro, and a couple of others. They, yes, Ron, that is it. They didn't grasp that consumers were looking, and a lot of the tequilas that have really taken off in the last year are organically made tequilas with no additives. And in their Herradura brand, they don't follow that sort of philosophy. They do with their El Tesoro brand, but they don't do a good enough job of doing it. So they've gotten past, and it's not a surprise, like I said, on the tequila side for me. They did say that in the U.S., their net sales declined by 5%. Influenced by the divestiture of Sonoma-Cutrer and reduced volumes on certain products. That's actually a benefit. They had spent a lot of money to buy Sonoma-Cutrer, a great winery out of Sonoma Valley that was a high-end Chardonnay and Pinot Noir house. But it didn't fit their portfolio very well. So I do think getting out of that business is good for them. They have done well in the inexpensive wine area. They were the folks behind Fetzer wines. And like I said, Corbel Champagne, they do very well in those segments. They've always struggled in the upper end segment. So getting rid of that is not a bad idea. So overall, I do think that it's a company I would keep an eye on. I don't know that I'm buying it today, but it is one that I do like for a longer term move. We are 3 minutes from the open here. Let's take a look. Tick fairly flat here. Advanced decline has come back down below that 2,000, back to 1888. We see the SPY getting set to open pretty much flat right at about that 576.86 level it closed at yesterday. The Qs are up about 14 basis points here. As I mentioned, Bitcoin was battling with the 90,000 level here, up nicely. Most of crypto was up. Gold is down about a 0.5 percentage point, so we are seeing a little bit of a pullback on gold. The other one that's really I haven't talked that much about this week, that we'll talk more about after the open, is oil. Really down at low levels here, 66. You know, this is kind of the areas that you start to think about maybe going long on WTI, even though, you know, the market might be moving the other way. We know once it gets below 70 is where the SPR tends to get refilled. So one to keep an eye on here. Yeah, Ron, I think BFB, though, is the one you want to use. I know you can get both. I think BFA, though, might be the family. It's sort of like Berkshire with the voting. I know that it has to do because, again, that's a company that is tremendously owned by the family. So if I'm not mistaken, and I will do a little bit more research after I get off today and give you some more info on that, but I have always personally traded BFB. I don't know that BFA is as readily tradable. Let me see if I look at volume, 177.83. Yeah, much more volume, definitely, and liquidity in BF.B. So I think it's very similar to Berkshire and some other companies that we know that have families that control large parts of it. We are open here. Let's see what we get. Tick first few seconds here is negative, moving even a little bit more negative, 323. Advanced decline first moves to the downside were at 1783. QQQ did open up slightly up at 495.75 or so. SPY is slightly down, so we don't know what we're going to see here off the start. We're going to have to keep an eye. I need a quick sip of my coffee. Okay, let's see what's going on. Tick still negative. SPY is moving up. Dow Jones opens up pretty much flat. Everything is moving slightly up, so we do see a little bit of buyers stepping in here, looking across the tick. Just seeing what's coming across anything here. Unfortunately, seeing a magnitude 5.6 earthquake struck Oaxaca, Mexico on Wednesday. That's not good. Apollo is lending $180 million to refinance New York University's largest student housing project. That's good to see. Seeing Canada's S&P Global Service PMI just came in at 46.6. That's a decrease from 49 the month before. So their PMI not looking very good either. Tick is still negative. Advanced decline sticking about the same area. QQQ is slightly moving up here. Let's take a look. See if we can start to see what we would do here in the morning hours. So far, it's opened up below VWAP, so a little bit of a bearish setup so far on QQQ here, even at the open. Again, that 455.99 is what I was watching earlier, challenging that position. Right now, dropping to the downside. So far, nothing has me turning to the bullish side here on QQQ, and I'm looking at the 1-minute chart there. Hourly, same thing until we really get above that 500 level. I'm not feeling bullish on the hourly chart. So QQQ not opening up, looking that great for me. Let's take a look at the SPY. SPY looks like it wants to challenge VWAP here, so we could get a little bit of action, a little bit of volatility coming in here. QQQ now up 13 basis points. So we do see at least the day traders trying, 0DTE folks trying to push this up to the VWAP to at least make it an interesting game for the day here. Bulls are trying to get a little bit into the game, but so far bears are controlling it. Tick is slightly positive, but it's not really moving much of anything. SPY is and QQQ both basically flat here. QQQ has gone negative. Let's take a look at the Mag 7. We see NVIDIA. Let's see what's going on there, because I did put, like I said, some spots in here that I wanted to watch with the Mag 7. So NVIDIA, unfortunately, right in the middle of what for me is sort of a no man's land at this 115 area. I want to see it get down to 109 or below for an entry to the north side. And if I'm going to short it, I'm doing that more on a level between 123.85 and that 129.50 level. So not much there for me so far on NVIDIA. If I'm looking at Apple, we are seeing a little bit of a bounce back. I saw Apple just retook the VWAP here. So let's see if that's happening across QQQ too. Not really. It's trying a little bit, but we're not quite getting there yet on VWAP there. SPY, not really either. SPY's battle tried to get to VWAP twice, has not been able to. Okay, let's get back to Apple here. Apple down about 17 basis point. Microsoft, Meta, Tesla, all sort of leading in the green so far, but not far enough in the green where they necessarily are going to stay there. We've seen these reverse quickly. Let's take a look at what's going on with Microsoft here. Looks like the one in play the most. You can see on the Mag 7 here on Microsoft, it broke through VWAP right at that 930, tested it once. So far right now, Microsoft, at least on a very short-term scalping chart, looking a little bit better here. Hourly, though, we need to see it break above 392 to start to feel very comfortable there. Let's take a look. Meta is the big winner so far, up almost a full percentage point here. See what we get here. Meta 2 broke through VWAP, tested it on a few equations, moving to the upside off the minute chart here. So that's actually looking pretty good. Meta moving to the upside. NVIDIA now gone positive 2. Google's gone the other way. Apple's still negative on the day. Tick still slightly negative. Advanced decline still sticking right around the same area. So we're not getting a clear direction yet. We are just sort of teetering where we're sitting. Bitcoin is moved back down to the lower 89,000 mark here. Again, it had been up higher earlier here. And again, on the minute chart, showing some negative action, both on the hourly too. We had sort of a rounding cupping formation to the downside there. Let's take a look at the sections or the sectors of the spider here. And we see energy is the big loser so far. Energy down about 1.32% so far. Utilities also down almost a half of percentage point. And then technology, big winner so far is the material sector, up 1.36%. So that's the big winner so far. Financials, which are the banks, are down slightly too. Real estate also getting slightly hit here. I will mention one other positive that we had coming out today was mortgage rates are getting a little bit of a breathing room here. Where's my news? Mortgage rates have hit a 3-month low, coming down to about 6.73. Still an 83, and it sparked an 83% year-over-year surge in refinances. We'll see what happens from that, but that was moving nicely in a good direction. Tick still negative here, not moving up too well. Advanced decline. We now see the Qs have moved down about 22 basis points. Dow Jones holding up the best so far, up 17 basis points. But again, nothing really very much moving to the upside. Let's see the things we were looking at this morning that were up earlier. Still up. So Moderna holding up pretty well here. Up 7.51% so far. So that's holding up pretty well. GM holding up still about 3.5%. So we are seeing some winners. Brown-Forman still up about 6.61%. CrowdStrike still moving to the downside, down about 10% here. I did have some more information on some other stuff here. Campbell's reported today they had some pretty bad earnings at CPB, down about 2%. Let me take a look at their news here. And again, Campbell's had their second quarter earnings, a mixed performance, led to a downward revision of its full year outlook. And you can see stock was down about 2% here. And it's actually trading to the upper side of where it has on the trade since we've been open. It was down much lower, around 38.07. They had an EPS with 74 cents, which was above earnings analysts' expectations. Their net sales, though, were slightly below the fact set there. They did lower their fiscal year guidance. They now project between $2.95 to $3.05 on the adjusted EPS. That is below even the low side of their former estimate, which was $3.12 to $3.22. So a little bit of a loss there. CEO said that they anticipated improvement in sales. It did not materialize in this quarter, and it leads to a more subdued outlook for the second half. They also talked about divestitures. They are getting rid of their Noosa yogurt business. And again, said that they did not factor in impacts from possible U.S. import tariffs and retaliatory actions by other countries, but acknowledged that it would make an uncertain and evolving trade environment for them. So Campbell's was down on that. Abercrombie and Finch had earnings also. They got hit pretty hard here, now down almost 16%. So they're, on the other hand, just continuing to slide to the downside here. And I mentioned I don't know anyone that shops at Abercrombie anymore. So they released their earnings. anticipates a sales increase of 3 to 5%, which was below their former estimates of 5.5% growth. Earnings projections at EPS between $10.40 to $11.40. So that was fairly close to analyst predictions. Their fourth quarter performance surpassed EPS guidelines. They came in at 357 versus an estimate of 354. And they did get a 9% increase in revenue. So they had a pretty good year overall. Their revenue grew by 16% with operating margins rising by 15%. So they did have a good year. Doesn't seem like anybody really likes it. I'm not sure what really has everybody so spooked here, but moving to the downside, I think for me, again, my takeaway is that I just don't know anyone that really shops there anymore. My offhanded remark yesterday was they need grunge to come back. They were big back in the 90s when Nirvana was big and haven't really been since. Other news I saw, Disney, the duck, is laying some people off. And they did announce 200 layoffs in their streaming service. Approximately 200 employees, accounting for about 6% of the workforce, are being laid off across ABC News and Disney Entertainment Networks. Move underscores Disney's strategic shift from traditional cable to streaming services. Decline in linear networks. The revenue for Disney's linear network division is projected to decrease by 8.6%, reflecting the industry's cord-cutting trend. And they're looking for growth in the streaming revenue, though, to rise by about 9.8% to offset that. In fact, not only to offset it, but they're looking for about a $6.67 billion in streaming revenue versus that loss of $2.39 billion in the linear or cable area. They're also making a bigger investment into live sports to compete in the evolving streaming landscape. Disney plans to invest heavily in live sport content, a domain where competitors like Netflix have already made substantial investments. And again, the stock was up about 1.29% here on that news. So good to see there that, it seems like the market likes news like that in general. Taking a look across the tickers here, U.S. stocks, a little change Wednesday as the latest jobs data exasperated concerns about the economy and appeared to pull attention away from the hopes of a compromise on President Trump's controversial tariffs. So again, not a lot there. And again, everything seems to be based around tariffs. Wall Street Journal has tariffs. As Trump ratchets up pressure on China, Beijing said it will resist efforts to constrain its rise. So, trade war doesn't work for anybody. Campbell's we talked about. Let's see. I also have those. I wonder if they're holding up. So we do know GM. Yeah, it's holding up pretty well. So General Motors, Ford, Stellantis were all moving up today on, expectations on the news that Howard Lutnick had today that, we should hear from the White House today about tariffs in a positive way. I will point, though, it seems like we're starting to get a little bit of a retracement here as we're opening on those car ones. Let's take a look and see what is pumping so far here this morning. So big winners so far, Palomar Holdings, Brown-Forman, Huntington Ingalls that we talked about. Carrier Global up nicely here this morning. Let's see here. Now, those are the losers. Losers so far, AeroVironment. I do have news on them. They had earnings. If I can. There they are. And let me pull it up from here. They issued weak fiscal year guidance, expecting revenues between 780 and 795, down from a former guidance of about 810. And their adjusted earnings forecast also came in below estimates. Their shares plunged 20% amid concerns over the U.S. support for Ukraine, a key market for the company's guided munitions. So again, Aero AVAV is a company that provides munitions. They are one of the ones they talked about that could be a big loser here and there. And again, Tempest AI getting hit pretty hard here, down 4.34%. We talked about CrowdStrike, which is down 10.5% here. So we're continuing to see that. Another one that's gotten hit here over the last couple of days has been Seagate. STX has definitely seen some struggles here over the last few days, still moving to the downside. Let's take a look and see what's moving to the upside. Seeing that an oil refinery in Azerbaijan is on fire. That's not good. I wonder if that's going on there. And again, top winners so far today: Moderna, Brown-Forman, AST, Space Mobile up 10%. Huntington Ingalls that we talked about already. Cyllene is making a comeback. We know that that had been beaten up recently in the news and its stock price. Let's see if there's any other things we notice. Really, WeRide getting a little bit of love here again. That's been a very volatile stock of recent. AAON, which dropped down last week on their bad earnings, moving back up here today. So we do see volatility still leading sort of the day and the markets in general. Tick is currently slightly positive to the upside here, about 460. My trading view is freezing up. Let me try to get this restarted here. I apologize. Sometimes it does this on me. I'm going to shut her down and start her back up. Seeing out of Bloomberg, something I enjoy, Killington, one of my favorite mountains here on the East Coast, called the Beast of the East, now planning a $3 billion improvement plan. That will be interesting to see. That means it will probably cost about $400. There we go. Now Tick's moving. $400 a day to go skiing. QQQ still negative, but trying to move to the upside. I will say advanced decline has moved up nicely. So we've gained about 1,000 on the advanced decline since the open. Most of those seem to be Dow Jones components, which is now up 42 basis points, continuing to move to the upside here. So the Dow seems to be moving up, being led. Mag 7 is not really leading the day. We see, a nice move up by Microsoft, a nice move up by Meta, a little bit of a move up by Netflix and Amazon, but downside, Apple down 1.37%, Nvidia threatening to slide back below that 115 handle here. And Tesla still below 275, in fact, down at 271. Let's take a look at the Spider Selects here. What is moving up? XLB, the big winner so far, the material sector. So material sector is leading the way up almost 2 percentage points here. Let's see what breaks that down. We can see what's moving the most there. I can pick that sector out. Materials. I don't know if it matches up perfectly here the way I wanted it to. Huh. Of course it doesn't. Okay. Sorry about that. I was hoping I could just search it by that and it was going to help me. Okay, we are 20 minutes in. Credo, the big loser so far, down 14.49. Like we said, Aero Environment, CrowdStrike, Tempest. Big winners, AST Space Mobile right now, the big mover to the upside here. Chinese names moving up here today. Also, JD up 3.3%, PDD up 3.73%, Baidu up 3.16. So again, a lot of the foreign stocks up. ASML up 3% here. So again, King Dollar taking a little bit of a breathing space today. DXY still below 104.50 here. We've seen a 1.3%, 6% surge in the euro today, a 0.5 percentage point surge in the UK sterling has things moving there. Bitcoin back down at 89,000, as we talked about earlier. Tick is continuing to move to the upside here. VIX is up right around 24 here. So again, still not in a spot that I really have a play for it yet, but continuing to spike up here. It is getting close to where it'll get interesting for me, maybe for a short. Technology definitely getting a hit. The Q is still down. SPY is holding up. And I think if we look at the short-term chart, we'll see the bulls trying to take back control. We can see here we've gone up and down across VWAP a few times here since the open when it comes to the SPY. QQQ, though, has been pretty firmly based below the VWAP, keeping that bearish on the short term. Dow Jones, on the other hand, has nicely played above the VWAP most of the morning here since we've opened. So it is the one that's seeming the most bullish. We'll take a look at the RUT for the same thing. RUT looks pretty much the same way too. Tick staying positive, advanced decline moving to the upside. So we like to see that. NVIDIA has now gone positive on the day. So we get a nice little spike here out of NVIDIA. Move to the upside, 116.28. Divided Supreme Court declined to suspend a lower court's order that directed the Trump administration to resume nearly $2 billion in foreign aid. So we'll see what happens there. You can see NVIDIA not able to make a move yet to the upside above VWAP either. So far, it's still staying bearish for me. We'll see if that can turn around here at any point. Tick coming back closer to neutral here a little bit, but we're now in the positive across. Oh, QQQ is trying to go positive here. Still can't. That's been the big spot. It's been stuck there. See what else we see moving up or down. Like I said, BABA up about 4%. So Chinese stocks making a nice move to the upside. BABA up 4.05. Brown Forman, we talked about that earlier, now up more than 10%. Baidu up 3.22% when it comes to Chinese stocks here. CrowdStrike continuing to move to the downside, now down 11% here this morning. Carvana getting hit pretty hard here, down 2% this morning. Foot Locker moving up 6.45% here. I do have to point out, though, they took a big, drop down here over the last few weeks. They have gapped up since their earnings yesterday. So nice move up here by Foot Locker. Did I have some news? I did have some news from there. Foot Locker had a nice earnings outlook here. They pointed out that their EPS was 86 cents above analyst expectations of 72 cents. And their net income for the quarter came in at $49 million. Total sales decreased 5.7% and fell below their estimations, but comparable store sales increased by 2.6%, marking the third consecutive quarter of growth. And their gross margin improved to 29% here, so indicating better cost management. Their full year outlook, they kept their EPS projection about the same spot where it was, and total sales are expected to range from a 0.1% decrease to a 0.5% increase. So a little bit lower there, but moving up nicely on that. So people seem to be happy with what they're hearing out of Foot Locker. I didn't look to see if that it has Nike moving here this morning. Does have Nike up slightly here, so that's interesting to see. We'll say MicroStrategy up about 2.25% after the nice move up yesterday. So it's starting to get to an interesting area here. Got to break 296 here for me to continue a bullish move here. It did break through the first area of resistance I was watching at 277. So MSTR with a nice move to the upside. Those of you that have been following know that I am in a wheel trade on MSTU. So happy to see that move up there. That's the big things I'm seeing here. Temu's parent company up nicely for 4% and change here. BlackRock moving up here too, almost a percentage point today. News yesterday that they had purchased 2 ports that are on either end of the Panama Canal from a Hong Kong company. We do see broadband, TSM, and ASML all in the green for chips, and they are the major chips to the green. NVIDIA down a full percentage point, almost AMD. So we're seeing the U.S. manufacturer of chips to the downside. Broadband, TSM, and ASML moving up today. E-commerce, same thing. All of the overseas companies getting a lot of love. So what is moving on the stock market seems to be the overseas companies. Same thing here. If we look at banks, while Morgan Stanley is up, the rest of the banks that you see that are in the green here, Royal Bank of Canada, HSBC, MUFG, which is Mitsubishi. These are all foreign banks. ICICI, UBS, Toronto Dominion, SMFG, which is Sumamoto. These NU, which is New Holdings out of Brazil, Banco Santander. All of the banks that are up are basically international banks. None of the U.S. banks here seem to be on the upside here. As we look at restaurants, seeing a little bit of a move back up by restaurants here. Dryden with a nice move up. QSR up almost 2%. That is the parent company, Restaurant Brands. Not much really going on there. Steel all moving to the upside yesterday, but most of these were down tremendously yesterday. We do see Cleveland Cliffs up about 2.22%. So this is the sector in materials that's moving up. The Spider Select is steel market up pretty nicely here with Alcoa up 3.79%. Century Aluminum up 2.74%. So aluminum for sure getting a little bit of love here. I haven't seen any new news on the tariffs, but you would think that is leading towards the thoughts that maybe there is a little bit of more positivity coming out of the White House today when it comes to tariffs. Tick is slightly negative in advanced decline, has dropped back down. Oof, we've gone negative on 3 of the 4 indices here. Dow still up. SPY, though, now down 11 percentage point or 11 basis points here. QQQ down 25 basis points. The RUT pretty flat. So we'll see what's going on there. Still negative here and continuing to slide to the downside. So we are not seeing a lot of positivity come out here. You can see we're now starting to trade back to the downside. Just trying to look here. Now we're back to the positive. Okay. Market is rather dysfunctional here. Nice move up by the tick. Advanced decline back at 3,000. Tick moving now. Here we go. We're pumping up now. We got a nice little move up here. Advanced decline moving to the upside. Spine now up 29 basis points. QQQ up 25 basis points, 27 and moving to the upside. So we definitely got something moving. I'm seeing from Liz Clayman from Fox News saying, alert, is the Trump administration about to blink on tariffs? Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick tells Larry Kudlow announcement coming this afternoon. Word is GM, Ford, and Stellantis could get a 30-day exemptions. All three stocks tanked yesterday, now up today. Doesn't address the longer-term issues here, so it does seem that we might get a little bit of a movement here about that. But I would say volatility is definitely the move of the day. That's what I'm seeing, is volatility all over the place here. QQQ now tick down negative 300. I mean, if you look at this tick here, this is by the minute. Look at the last, since 938, it's just gone up as high as 800, down 700, back up 850, and then down 200. So we are just seeing some definite thing there. Bitcoin back below 89,000 here. Gold is starting to pick up a little bit. What is VIX doing? VIX still right around that 24 area here. Well, we are moving a little bit to the upside here as we are ready to finish up with our first hour. We will have on a next Dr. Alan Ellman talking about the 5 things to worry about when you are looking to make a covered call position. We have that coming up next here. And then at 12 o'clock, I am back with Agnieszka Wood, our trading mindset coach. So make sure you tune in for that. And then at 1 o'clock, back with Scott Bauer and the guys from Prosper Trading Academy. And then after that, at 2 o'clock, I have a crypto update that I'll be making for everybody, what's going on there leading into the summit on Friday. I think I hit everything so far today. So a busy day across Quasar Markets Live. Make sure you're tuning in, everybody. Thank you for joining me this morning. My takeaways, we are seeing a little bit of a move to the upside here, but I, again, would be quick to take profits here. I'm not looking to develop a long-term position today. I need to see, what's going to happen over the next couple of days. Friday's non-farm payroll is going to be the big one. And, I need to see what comes out of the White House today on these tariffs. What exactly do they carve out? Is it enough to make the markets move to the upside? That's going to be the key to keep an eye on here is, what comes out of the White House today is going to drive the markets the most. Have a fantastic trading day, everybody. And again, like I said, we have Dr. Alan Ellman from the Blue Collar Investor coming up next, followed by myself and Agnieszka Wood, our trading mindset coach, Prosper Trading, and Scott Bauer back at 1 o'clock. And then again, myself for some crypto updates this afternoon. And we'll have a few more tidbits in and about there. Have a great day, everybody.